everyone, and welcome to days 43 through 49 of our RV-10 build. We are continuing work on the Tailcone. This is also the episode where I'm going to cover Service Bulletin 18-03-30, so make sure to stick around to see that. And this is also the first episode I'm going to do that's kind of a longer format, like I'd mentioned before. Be sure to let me know down in the comments below what you think, but I'm trying to work on getting more information out there faster to get more caught up with where we currently are in the build. So right now we are, again, continuing here on the Tailcone, and there's just a little bit more match drilling to do. We did most of it, but what you've seen here is I've taken all the clamps off that were there holding it on for the match drilling, and what I have to do now is go back and match drill the holes that were underneath the clamps that were holding the longeron in place. So that's all that's going on right now, taking those clamps off and then just match drilling the holes underneath where the clamps were sitting. Seeing this also, doing the match drilling here on the longerons reminded me of something that I wanted to bring up. We didn't use it at the time, but looking back, it would have been really helpful to have it. And those are spring drill stops or spring-loaded drill stops. And I've made a little clip to kind of explain what they are and why they would have been useful at this point in the build. All right, hopefully you can hear me okay, but I am out in the garage filming this little snippet, and this is the day after the big snowstorm we had here in Texas, so it's freezing. I'm freezing, and I'm sorry, but no, I'm not gonna turn the heaters off, so hopefully you can hear me over the noise. But let's get to this little add-on. So, this is a number 30 drill bit, and this is a number 30 drill bit with a spring drill stop or spring-loaded drill stop. And the whole point of these little spring drill stops is to help keep you from smashing the chuck of the drill into like the surface that you're drilling. So for example, here on the Tailcone, like I'm talking about, we're not using the number 30. I think it's mostly number 40s on there, but the point is there's quite a bit of match drilling like through the longerons, and then there's also some final drilling, but especially on the match drilling where you have quite a bit of resistance that you're pushing into with the drill bit. When you suddenly pop through, if you just have the drill bit in here with nothing on it, and you suddenly go and you pop through, you could end up then scuffing the skin there that you're drilling with the chuck here once you finally make your way through the skin. But the idea with having one of these little spring or spring-loaded drill stops is that if you've got this on, that now when you go and you punch through after some resistance there, you're gonna hit this instead, and then the spring will help take any of the, it's a pretty strong string, you can see here I'm trying to push, but it'll absorb the chuck there. But the big thing is that you're gonna hit this part here against the skin instead of the chuck. And these that we have, I think is actually a little metal tip on the end. These came with our kit from Cleveland Tool, but I've seen others where they have plastic at the end, and I think those are supposed to, from what I've seen, they're supposed to be even better at helping prevent marks on the skin. But again, just having this on here, again, these came with our kit, and we just, I don't know, just forgot or didn't realize there were so many things in the kit when we were first getting started, and we hadn't been using these, and suddenly, I remember like looking through one of the baskets and going, oh, we've had these the whole time. So the way that these little drill stops work, here is another one. And so you would just take the drill bit and it slides through. Keep in mind I'm behind the camera here trying to do this. Aha, there you go. And so it slides through, and then there is a little screw here that you just use a little hex bit to secure the drill stop to the drill bit there, and that's it. I just tried to make sure when I put these on that there was a fair amount here to be able to secure with the chuck and the drill to get a good grasp on it. You didn't need that much, really, like too much sticking out in the end there when you're just trying to drill through a lot of these parts here that we're doing on the plane. But yeah, so I wish we'd had these on our drill bits when we were doing the tailcone. I don't think it's that there's like huge damage, but again, like there were times where you're getting through, and when you punch through after some of that resistance on the match drilling, it did just leave a little bit of a scuff mark. And if we had these spring or spring-loaded drill stops on, I mean, that's the whole point of them, is to help prevent the chuck from smashing into the surface you're drilling. So now the one thing is, I did look on the Cleveland Tool website. I don't actually think they carry these anymore. I didn't see them when I went to look on their page. I have seen them on other websites. So again, if you look for spring drill stop or spring loaded drill stop, you should be able to find them. They come in a variety of sizes. But yeah, I mean, I personally have just found them useful. I think they're nice to have. And again, now that we do use them, it would have been nice to have those on the drill bits for doing all of that, especially with the match drilling there on the tailcone. But that is a spring or spring-loaded drill stop. So hopefully that makes sense. It's not something you need to have. Obviously, we ended up doing all of the match drilling and final drilling without it, and it turned out fine. There was just maybe like a small scuff that was left every now and then whenever we would have the chuck maybe come in contact with the skin while we were doing the match drilling in particular. But it's just one of these where if you have it or if you want to get it, it's a particularly inexpensive piece, and it was just nice to have once we realized we had it and started using it on the drill bits. And this was just one area where, again, because of all of the match drilling up and down the longerons on both sides of the tailcone, I feel like this would be a particularly useful place where you could have, if you have it, that you could have used it and gotten more out of it. Moving on, there were some more holes we had to drill on the side skins to the frames and the bulkheads, and then after that we had to flip the tailcone over to do a little bit more drilling there on the bottom skin to the frames and bulkheads as well. And as big as this looks, it's really, really light, but definitely, you know, 2 people, because it's just so huge. But it really wasn't heavy at all, so that was pretty cool. After you finish the little bit of drilling there on the bottom, you're going to flip it back right side up. The only slightly tricky thing when you're flipping it around again to get it right side up is to keep an eye on the clecos that you have on the bottom of the tail cone, so you don't smash any of them down on the sawhorses. So to just kind of keep an eye on it so that you can get the sawhorses set between the clecos that you've got currently holding everything together on the bottom of the tail cone. There's a little bit of drilling there as well with the aft deck and the bulkhead, but then you're going to do fluting along 1 bulkhead and then 3 frames that you have there where they have these small tabs. It goes into that in the book, and it says heavily flute them, so like really crank down on those little fluting pliers that you have. That's going to help pull all the holes into alignment. I'm going to cover fluting more in a future video, probably in the wing kit, to go over just kind of like why and how. Honestly, looking back, there's probably other places in the emp kit where maybe it would have been helpful to have fluted a couple more of the components, but I think it was still kind of a new concept. Anyway, I'm going to cover fluting more. It really doesn't pertain here because the book specifically says heavily flute here, here, and here. Do it. That's all there is to it. All right, and so then you're going to take, after you've done all the fluting, you take the different stiffeners. You're going to slide them in just like you did for on the side and the bottom. And then you're going to get out these top skins. And so the top skins are flat, and you have to then like curve them down around the frames and bulkheads versus like the side skins where it was already curved at the bottom to fit that curve there on the bulkheads and frames. And so just like in the book, it says to start at the top center, and so you then have to kind of start to push it and work its way down. And what we found to be helpful was to put a cleco in every hole while we were trying to conform the skin to the bulkheads and the frames. And it seemed to be a little easier to start working at the aft end of the skin. So along that smaller curve there on that one frame, I think that was F-1009. And the other thing too to keep in mind is you're going to need to take out all the clecos that currently are holding the side skin, both of them to the longerons there underneath where that top skin's going to go, because otherwise you won't be able to get the skin all the way down. It overlaps there. So just make sure to take out the clecos that are holding the side skins to the longerons right there where that skin's going to go.
Dude,
this is really kind of cool. I mean, think of like that. You're fucking cool.
Tail with the plane here.
Now this is like the first like enclosed bit. I mean, look how cool this is. Ah, it's so crazy cool. Yes, it was very exciting to see the tail cone all put together with the skins on there and have this huge piece sitting in the garage. It was another great place for two people because I would kind of help adjust the stiffeners and make sure to hold them in the right place, because again, you're lining up that center line that you've drawn on all the stiffeners, and you are now match drilling between the skin and the stiffeners. And so I'd hold it in place while Tyler did the drilling. It just seemed to work out well for us. And so you're gonna do that match drilling in the stiffeners up to the point where you get to that leading edge of the what's the name of that one skin? The F-1075, sorry, I don't remember what the name of it was. But then when you put on the F-1074 forward skin, you're going to take out all those clecos again that are at the leading edge, put the top skin on pretty much the same way that you did the forward top skin on, the same way as you did the other one, and then same kind of deal, start to cleco it down. Now, when we started clecoing the F-1074 and the F-1075 to that F-1007 frame. So what I mean is it's the rear line, it's the aftmost line of holes on the F-1074 skin, the top skin, the forward top skin, and then the F-1075 aft top skin, where those intersect, and the frame underneath it. What seemed to be helpful there is Tyler was clecoing everything from the outside, but because you've got the two skins, and then on that frame, that F-1007 frame, there's all these little like 2 and 3 hole flanges that I reached in from the forward end or the tail cone. It would help kind of move the little flanges into alignment to help line up the holes while Tyler was clecoing them. Because it just would be kind of awkward. I don't think you'd really be able to do it where you could be standing and have your eyes lined up with the holes and then reach all the way around to be able to move it. Again, just it was nice. It worked out well with the two of us there doing that. I think I mentioned this in the last video, and it says it several times in the instructions. Remember, you're not drilling any of the holes that are on the F-1006 bulkhead, so the forwardmost bulkhead. You're not doing anything with those holes on all the skins. We just made sure to write all over it, no, no, no. It says it several times in the book. Just make sure not to do that. Don't touch those. Don't touch those holes at all in that F-1006 bulkhead. All right, I'm going to find out how many we bought. I might as well try and look it up. But these are all, up to the silver clecos we have left, there's 28. And as you can see, we've been very sparse with using the clecos. And we've had to keep stealing from one place, was it robbing Peter to pay Paul? Something like that, in order to make it work. So this will give you an idea of how many clecos you need for this part. All right, right, this next part seemed a little bit tricky to explain without visuals, so it's going to switch gears here a little bit, and I'm actually going to have the instructions up on the screen to try to help make better sense of what it is that I'm saying. Okay, so now we are moving on to making the F1011D horizontal stabilizer attachment bar support angle and the F1012D up elevator stop. This second one is the one that is mentioned in the service bulletin 18-03-30. So here, this is step 2 of page 10-13. This is the part where the service bulletin comes into play. So let's take a look at that. Looking here at the original instructions, this piece originally was 3/4 inches by 3/4 inches. So the vertical and horizontal flange on this part were both 3/4 inches. And if you look here at the service bulletin, and I will make sure to put a link for it down below, but looking at the service bulletin, apparently it looks like what they said was the problem, from my understanding, here on the third page, figure 2, abnormal control stop operation, is that sometimes the trimmed face here of the elevator horn would jam against the stop there. You can see the F1012D. And so their solution was to make a longer horizontal flange on this piece. So instead of this horizontal flange here being only 3/4 inches, it is now, as you can see here, 1.25 inches. So it's going to stick out another 1/2 inch. The instructions that are written here in the service bulletin are written as though you are replacing the piece. So it's not really directed towards you creating the new piece. And so there's a couple things that I noticed making it that I thought I would bring up. So the first thing I wanted to point out here is that in step 4, it mentions here, clamp the up elevator stop angle in place on the fuselage and match drill the old number 30 and number 12 holes from the fuselage into the angle. So if we go back here to the original instructions, what it's talking about are these 5 holes that are here. And so there's 2 things. One, you're going to be, these dimensions here all still apply. You're still going to be measuring these 5 holes 15-30 seconds from the aft side of this bracket. So as you can see it in this section, the vertical flange goes towards the aft side, and then the horizontal flange extends forward. And so you're still going to be measuring these 5 holes into your new aluminum bracket that the aluminum angle you're using to make this bracket. You're still going to measure them at 15-30 seconds from the rear forward, and then with the same spacing here. One thing I guess to keep in mind is that the idea is that the vertical flange was still going to be in the same place. So in this original one, where it was 3/4 inches here, as you can see in this part of the cutaway, where the horizontal flange is 3/4 inches, originally what you did is you lined up this edge of the horizontal flange, the forward edge of the horizontal flange, with this edge here of the cutout in the aft deck. And again, looking at what the problem is here in their picture, what you're doing is you're extending this horizontal flange forward. So this vertical flange is going to stay in the exact same place. You're not moving this backwards or forwards. The vertical flange is going to be in the same place as it was originally. It's just now that the horizontal flange is going to extend forward. And so you need to have it where wanting this vertical flange to be in the same place, you still want the edge of this to be 3/4 inch back from the this edge here of the cutout in the aft deck. And so to do that, because this vertical flange here doesn't change, in the new instructions it still says to cut it down where this vertical flange is 3/4 inches. I just used the vertical flange here to measure where to place the bracket. So what I mean by that is I rotated this 90 degrees. So now I have this a vertical flange that I lined up here with the edge of this cutout in the aft deck, and then I traced a line back here along the opposite edge. So what that gave me is it gave me a distance that it gave me a line that's parallel here to the edge and was exactly 3/4 inches out. So now when I rotate it back to normal and I've got the horizontal flange down here, I know that the vertical flange is still in the same place. So the vertical flange would still be in the same spot, and now I have it where my longer horizontal flange will extend 1/2 inch out like it's supposed to. Hopefully that's making sense. The point is the vertical flange doesn't move. All you're doing is extending this horizontal flange out. So use that vertical flange, line it up here with the edge of the cutout, trace a little line back here. That to me was the easiest way to make sure I put it in the right place. Instead of getting out the ruler and trying to measure stuff, just trace it using the vertical flange so you have a line there, and then you can line up the back of the bracket with that line that you've drawn to clamp it into place for when you are drilling. Because again, since this is our first time installing it, we don't have, as you can see here, there's no holes yet in this aft deck. We are putting those holes into the aft deck by match drilling through the holes that we have put here into this angle that we're using to make the bracket. So that's why it's important to trace that little line there, to have it, to know where you need to line the bracket up when you're doing the match drilling into the aft deck. The other one is that if you scroll down here to page 3, they have this drawing to show you the modified up elevator stop top view. Okay, so this is looking down on it. So you have here is looking down, that's the vertical flange, and then here's the horizontal one. Now, there's only, barring this, curvature there for the cutout, there's only these 2 dimensions, and it clearly has these 2 little notches here that are cut out in this modified up elevator top view. And if you look back here, let me get back to where we were, that there was no cutout here on the old one. You see it was literally just straight across, and so I was like, okay, I'm not sure how to cut this. You can see that it's referring to, again, the 1.25 inch length there on the horizontal flange, and then this center measurement. So you can extrapolate these edge distances, but it didn't show how much this was supposed to be, like how much this was supposed to be cut out. And so I went and called Vans, just again trying to make sure I was reading this and understanding this, and I'm pretty sure this is the first service bulletin we had to deal with. So wanting to make sure I was doing it right, I called and said, hey, what's going on? What are these dimensions supposed to be here? And from my understanding, after talking to the builder support out there, that the point they're trying to make here with this drawing is that this is the part that matters the most, is that this center 1 inch and 31/32 here needs to be the 1.25 inch, because of this 1 inch and 31/32 is apparently enough to cover, if you're looking back here, this cutout in the aft deck. And so what their most important thing is that the part of the elevator stop that covers that cutout in the aft deck needs to be at least this wide to cover the width of that cutout, and it needs to be at least this long to make sure it extends another 1/2 inch from where it previously did. How big these cutouts were, my understanding from what they said, again, that's not so important. He said you can even just leave it if you don't want to cut it. The point is that this part has to be here. That's the important part, is that making sure you have this center section extend that 1/2 inch out to prevent this problem from occurring. So originally we just left it. We didn't trim it, since they said that you could just leave it. You didn't have to trim it. This was the important part here, that you had that. So I said, okay, well then let's just leave it and just have the extra length on there. I'm not concerned about the weight or anything. Fast forward, you're not going to see this part today, but I'm going to bring it up because it's relevant. When it came time to actually go and rivet these parts here onto the aft deck, that when, if you see here, let me zoom in again to make this easier. These two holes here, 1 and 2 on either side. So this is, again, this is the part from the service bulletin that's going to drop down. And because we haven't cut it, this is now going to extend out here a 1/2 inch the whole way across. And you might be seeing where the problem comes in. The edge, by not trimming it, the edge of this new F1012D interfered with placing the rivets in place here on the aft deck. So the heads of those rivets couldn't, I don't think the rivets actually fit. That was that close to the edge of the that horizontal flange here on the F1012D. But 2, there was no way, even if I did somehow finagle them in there, either with a regular rivet gun or with the pneumatic squeezer, to get the rivet set in there to be able to drive the rivet. And so it's like, aha, okay, now it's making sense why the cutout's there. You need to have a little cutout to be able to get these 2 rivets here installed. And so I went and I took a picture. I don't remember off the top of my head what the measurements were, but I ended up measuring it out to cut out just enough, basically just to have a decent amount of space here to install the 2 rivets, and then to be able to properly set them. I think I did end up using the squeezer through this cutout, but that's where these cutouts come into play, as it seems to be for that. So I'm going to put up the dimensions I used. You do you, whatever works in your mind. The important thing that, again, I gathered from talking to Vans is that this center part's what's the most important. Make sure that this center part is at least this wide and at least this long, so that it prevents this problem from happening by having that center part extend out here and help stop that the elevator horn sooner and keep it from jamming. So this is the most important part. How you end up cutting out the rest of this seemed to be less important. But so that's what I just wanted to point out, because this did confuse me a little bit here, not seeing the dimensions and just trying to convey what was the conversation with Vans and my understanding, and then where it ended up coming into play when it actually came time to riveting everything together. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, again, leave me a message below. I'm trying my best to figure out how to explain all of this without sitting down with you here in front of me, and hopefully with having the screen here to go with everything, and to be able to show you where it comes into play and where this little diagram here correlates to the actual tail cone. Hopefully this has helped make sense of it all. One last thing I forgot to add in the recording earlier, that you might have seen in one of the pictures. I'll put it up here again to point it out, but because there's 5 holes in that F1012D bracket, what I did is I put a center line that I've measured using the cutout there in the aft deck, and used that then to make sure I could center that bracket using that center line and the center hole that was in there. So just another little thing, instead of trying to eyeball the 2 edges, having that little center line there, which is one more point of reference to help line it up. And then finished up a little bit more of the drilling. We'd moved all the clecos around, so Tyler is going through and doing the rest of the final drilling there, now that we've moved all the clecos. Always having fun. So it's the next day, and we're on step 6 of page 10-13, where we are now going to be match drilling the F1011D attachment bar support angle that we made the previous day to the aft deck there. And you start out with the number 30 drill bit. You're supposed to go in and match drill the holes that are in that that attachment bar into the aft deck. And easy enough until when you start to get to the outermost holes there, the two F-1011C attachment bars are in the way. And what I mean by in the way is that if you just have the regular size drill bit on there, there isn't enough length to that drill bit to allow you to drill the holes without the chuck hitting the attachment bars. So fortunately, we had a 6-inch number 30 drill bit, and I popped that in, no problem. Until you get to the next part of step 6, where you're supposed to final drill the end holes using a number 12 drill. And I did not have a 6-inch number 12 drill bit at the time. So first, if you're doing this for the first time, get a 6-inch number 12 drill bit. That will just solve this problem and you won't have any issues. But we didn't have one at the time, and so what I was able to figure out is that I could stick my hand into the circular hole there in the aft deck, and I was able to take out the clecos that were holding the two F-1011C attachment bars into place, and was able to drop those down into the tail cone and then pull them out, so that I could then use a regular size number 12 drill bit to final drill those two holes there in step 6. No, I was not concerned about doing this just for these two holes because of the note on page 10-13 where it says with the top skins in position, the tail cone is torsionally rigid. And again, I put the two attachment bars back into place as soon as those two holes were drilled, so it's not like they were out for the rest of the build. So just for these two holes, we did it, and I think that was okay. But again, save yourself the headache and the hassle and just get a 6-inch number 12 drill bit. And now begins the sad part where you start taking everything apart. And you start by removing the two top skins there and all the stiffeners attached to those. You're then going to position the two shoulder harness anchors there on the longeron and then match drill through those 3 holes into the longeron. I did take my time here just to get it lined up just right, and just to make sure that everything was exactly where it should be. There's a couple other little steps there, nothing that I remember really standing out as needing to get pointed out. You end up cutting this little triangular portion off of one of the side skins there, and it was easy, just fine. I just used the snips to just trim it down. No big deal there. But then the sad thing is everything comes apart completely. And so after being so super excited, seeing the full tail cone come together, and again, like, look at how many days it took to put all of it together to now rip it all apart. It's always just the most gut-wrenching bit, honestly. And then the sad part was that it took three and a half days, I think, total to deburr all of the holes and everything and all of the edges of all the parts. It was a lot. It was, and those are sometimes the frustrating days because you feel like it's the monotony, and it's so much less exciting after you've done all of the assembly to then just be sitting there and it feels like you're doing some of the just more, I don't know, less rewarding work, let's put it that way. But I'll go over really quick here how we do the deburring based on what was suggested to us from our tech advisor as a really good way to do it. And here, like along the edges of these side skins and everything, you can kind of get a better idea, hopefully from these pictures and little videos, what I'm talking about. We started with a Vixen file, just a little handheld Vixen file there, and scraping that along to try and get the bigger like lumps and bumps off the edge, basically where kind of where you can see where it was cut. And so that gets the big burrs and everything off. And once you do that, then afterwards going and taking the little handheld deburring tool to go and deburr along the edges. And that I've found it takes sometimes a couple different passes, but you go and just can slide that and slowly, gently across and get everything rounded out nicely. And then after going and doing all that, taking a piece of the Scotch-Brite and the the Scotch-Brite pads that you have, and then running those along the edges, along the top and the bottom. And so that gets you a really nice, smooth finish and everything, very, very smooth edge. But so that's how it was recommended to us by our tech advisor. That's the way I personally really like to do it, to get a nice clean edge. This is another place where the that deburring bit would have been so handy if we had known about it at the time, because again, here with all these frames and bulkheads, and there's so many of these little flanges, and to go and get there in between all of them, and to have to take one of these little files instead, it takes so much more time. Let's be honest, it's still going to take a lot of time, even with the little Dremel bit, but to have that, I think, would make it a lot easier. I think it still would have gone a lot faster. I think it just would have been a little bit less of a pain in the butt, in particular on those bulkhead and frame parts, to get in between all of those little flanges. So if you haven't seen that video, I'm going to make sure to link it below, but go check out that little deburring tip using a cut up 3M wheel. That would have been super handy here. All right, with that, we're going to come to a stop. So this has been 7 days of work here covered. Well, day 42 to 49. And hopefully you guys are enjoying this longer format. I know it's a lot, but again, this seems like a good way to help get caught up, and hopefully by trying to tackle some bigger chunks like this at a time, help get more just helpful information out there just based on our experience. Let me know what you think in the comments. If this is too long, if this was too much, I can try and switch back to the shorter ones, but this seemed like a good way to try and help get caught up finally to where we are, since, we're in the middle of the fuselage right now and I'm still here talking about the M kit. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to give me a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, for more videos like these and to follow along as we build our RV-10.